Yo, it's Three Dog, and today we are going to acquire the Dunbarrow Cove in Oblivion Remastered. Now, we're also going to do this at level 1. You can acquire Dunbarrow Cove at any level, but I'm going to get it at level 1. Now, you can see that it is directly below Anvil Castle, or Castle Anvil, I should say. Once you get over here, you can cast the water walking spell and run straight up this little inlet here and run over to the right. You will see this little opening, and a message will appear that says there is a cave under Castle Anvil that might be worth investigating. So then you will turn to the right and you'll see a door marked obviously with these flowers. You can see the mountain on the other side with Castle Anvil up above. We're going to open the door to the smuggler's cave and go inside. Here in this area, most of the things are not of high value. I will not be searching them. Although you should store things there if you feel like, to avoid a second loading screen here. So going into Dunbarrow Cove, we will encounter darkness and we will encounter lots of skeletons. I'm bringing my zombie and I'm bringing a little light to the circumstance. I followed the rumors and found Dunbarrow Cove and the remains of the Black Flag. However, the caverns are overrun by the skeletons of the pirates who perished here. I'll have to put them all to rest before I can fix up the place, basically is what that said. Here is one skeleton now. These are the red saber skeletons. Some of them do drop swords, so be mindful of that. That's the one downfall of coming in here at level 1 is some of the swords and stuff are leveled down. However, they're not necessary, and the things you do acquire for getting this are much more valuable at a low level than they are at a high level, in my opinion. So, we're going to investigate the caverns and clear out these skeletons. Collecting a lot of petty souls here. This area is used later on. We'll be coming back here after we've fixed up the whole entire area of the cove here. So technically Dunbarrow Cove isn't really a player home since it's not really a house or anything of the sort. It's more a series of caverns and a couple, well, mainly one ship that's broken. So sometimes the enemies are down here, especially when you're a higher level. The wraiths will be down here. So I'm just gonna take a thorough look around, and it will take a while to discover where they are. Some of them are probably most likely above me on the ship there. I can't see them at the moment. I do see them on my HUD, so and cast that light spell before it expires. It can be hard to see in here, and I'm finding that sometimes it feels like I'm moving faster when I'm in third person, so that's why you see me playing in third person. And go through and pick out a couple spells here that might help. I'm a little over encumbered. I just picked up the red wave, and if you haven't seen that video, check it out. It's a really easy weapon to acquire also at level 1. And that made it to where I was definitely carrying a lot of weight. So, but the red wave is worth it, and I will remedy that situation soon enough. There's not really any skeletons down here, so we're gonna just keep going up. Here they come now. Alright, well, skeletons aren't as hard on adept difficulty as some of the things that I've encountered. On my other playthrough, I went to Arkved's tower and I was at level 34, and that was crazy inside there. It was pretty hard. Um, Definitely the closest that character has ever come to actually dying. Of course, the piratey feel of this place is awesome. We're gonna go inside the ship, which is called the Black Flag. Just looking for skeletons. I've come in here before and found the skeletons, so it just really depends. And this is the remaster, so I don't know if they made it to where the skeletons no longer spawn in the interiors or not. I guess these are interiors inside the interior, if you will, because we're going through many loading screens. But it seems to be pretty clear of any enemies. Let's go behind the ladder just in case we see anything. And look around one last time. Definitely was not anything up there, so we're going to have to look around a little more. We'll head into the captain's quarters and take care of that. Go ahead and cast some couple more spells. I like to make light spells that last a long time, and I like to make spells that give me shield or fortify my health or bring, lots of spells that just buff me. One of them that I've made, it does a really good job of helping my strength out as a level 1 character, so it gives me a little extra damage and speed when I do it. And at level 1, speed gives you a huge advantage. Of course, I could sleep in a bed, but this character is involved in a level 1 only playthrough, so here is Captain Dougal now. Well, now that he's defeated, let's look around a little bit. And all he had was bone meal. Looks like his journals are on the floor. We'll read those in a second. Oh, go ahead and put his cutlass up on the table here. We can see the captain's journals scattered on the floor. I'm finding it unlikely that anyone will be finding this journal, but if they do, know that here be written the last words of the great Captain Torridon ap Dougal, scourge of the Absisian Sea, terror of the Gold Coast, cutthroat of the Hunding Bay, and Lord Captain of the Red Sabre, the finest band of buccaneers and pirates ever to sail Tamriel. I ain't a man with much use for words. I ain't never been to no academies, and I ain't never wrote no books. Words ain't ever earned me no gold, so they's worthless to me. That's why ye have quartermasters and first mates. But I'm gonna be setting my last thoughts down here on paper, 'cause I ain't got much time left here, and it's every man's right to have his words heard. Now, me business was fightin', sailin', and lootin'. I became a leader of sailin' men, the most feared in history, or so they tells me. Now, before ye be gettin' ahead of yourselves, let me be warnin' ye that my tale does not end well, as I am sure you can see from wherever ye found me rotten bones in this God-cursed cavern. I was born in a little town on the north coast of Skyrim called Dunbarrow. Me mother was a wench. Me father was a right bastard. The only thing that either of 'em ever did for me was do me a favor by selling me off to that captain. That captain, he taught me everything I'd ever need to know about sailing, and a few things about the rest, too. Ye see, he were a smuggler, and he taught me all about smuggling and avoiding the Imperial Navy as he run the skooma route from Daggerfall to Vivek. Shame he were caught and hung. We were as close to Daddy as this old pirate ever knew, closer to that bastard that what sold me off ever knew, that's for sure. Okay, let's move on to Journal Part 2. Captain Dougal. After the cap were hung, I got about Hammerfield a lot, fell in a few crews here and there, and after a good time got myself hired as a midshipman at Captain Calidus' rig. Of course, Calidus was a drunkard, and the damn fool runs his own ship aground in Anvil every before and real pirating were done. So embarrassed that he drank himself to death in one of the piss-hole taverns in this flat little seawater town. So there I were in a backwater port where the war against the usurper broke out, and I were out to hire with a rickety tub and her worthless captain when the Imperial Navy stole every pirate ship in port and go to fight their war. We was coming back to the dock when we heard about it. Now, only a fool doesn't bite when he smells blood in the water, and that captain of ours had hand in the rubber over to the Navy. The rest of us, well, we didn't like that so much. We cut his throat and tossed his worthless carcass to the depths for Hermas Mioris to feed us on. The rest of us put keel to this mud hole and broke for the nearest cove to lay low for a while. Now, the things that I learned about the war is that it is profitable for just about everyone except for the poor bastards that actually have to go and fight it. Well, ain't that the truth? While the Navy were busy putting down the revolution, they were too busy worrying about a bunch of pirates running up and down the Gold Coast. Even better for us, the Navy was needing a stream of supplies up in High Rock to fight and didn't have the ships to escort them. In case you don't be knowing, cargo vessels without escorts is a pirate's best friend. In a couple of years I had every buccaneer from here to Valenwood flying under me flag. We had dozens of ships and crew and more men join every day. Soldiers and sailors, cast-offs from the war, escaped prisoners, they were the best cutthroats and son of whores that a pirate captain could ever wish for. It brings a tear to me eye to think of 'em all. But even better were the ships, captured Navy cutters, refitted private galleons, even a few of them, Bosmer's ships with the funny living sails in my fleet, the finest ship I saved for meself, the Black Flag. You'll find her rotten hull down here. She don't look much like much now, but I can tell ye that in her day she weren't no vessel that she couldn't outrun. all these men in ships. We called ourselves the Red Saber, and the merchant ships called us Death on the Seas. We got fights so feared that most crews just abandoned ship when they seen our flag on the horizon with no navy to stop us. Captain Torridon and Dougal and the Red Saber was known all over the East. Now, I ain't one to brag, but the Empire has a bounty on me of 40,000 coins. Now that's something to be proud of. Of course, the poor bastards couldn't never collect on it, Anvil being the wretched den that it is, and most sellers there work for me anyhow. The Legion couldn't never get no one to give me up. I wish those days could have lasted forever, but you know how it is, friend. Ain't nothing good can ever last. Well, bear with me on reading these journals. It's a little tricky. I ain't got much time left. Sure, we had plenty of food down here. It lasted for years. But all this time in the wet and the dark, I got something nasty growing in me. What a terrible way to die. Not on the end of some enemy's cutlass, but because of some damn sickness. No seafaring man could die like this. At least I can still hear the water. But I was telling the story of how I got mine, weren't I? I cursed the day that Cameron Usurper died at the end that war ended, 'cause all it was the day that Commodore Facile Umbrenax turned his attention to the Red Saber. A couple of months after the war, that fat, pompous bastard decided to come down here to Anvil and take up port in my town, looking to break up the Red Sabers. The Emperor gave him whatever he asked for to campaign against us, despite the coffers being empty from the war in High Rock. When Umbrenax couldn't get what he needed from my men in Anvil, he set out looking all over the Abyssinian Sea for the Black Flag. There are hundreds of islands in the Abyssinian, and he landed a few, like a crew on each one. He rooted out my men. When he couldn't find them, hung those who weren't willing to go peacefully, and jailed those who laid down arms. No matter for It says no matter for many ships and men it cost him, he kept coming with more and more. We couldn't never get none. We couldn't never get none. We couldn't never get ahead of him, and we couldn't never mount a counterattack. It took 4 years and a hell of a lot of ships, but that sea rat finally tracked me down. It were me own fault anyway. If I had never made the mistake I made, he'd have died before he found me. But a man has to stand up for his mistakes, no matter if it cost him. Besides, I ain't like I've been fooling ye since you're luckily staring at me, Bones, as you're reading this. Umbernox had his main force out on the port following a lead that I planted. I set sail back to Anvil, hoping to catch him off guard, capture the boats he left behind, and fight him with his own ships in Anvil Bay. Ha! Can you imagine the look on this pig's face if it would have worked? I thought it finally gave the whore's son to show in his face a proper fight. I would have, but he had men waiting for me. We fought like hell, but we were trapped in the bay. The Navy set the town on fire to keep us from fleeing on the land. I'm sure that the fine citizens of Cyrodiil didn't want to weep for the torching of a town of thieves. The main force of Imperial dogs held held us until Umbernox showed up in his flagship. Umbernox fought me to the last ship, and in the end the bay was filled with sunken and burning boats. If I weren't fighting for me life, I'd have probably thought it were beautiful. So the Black Flag and Umbernox's rickety tubs were the only ones that were still floating and fighting when dawn came. So I did what any pirate with any sense would do. I tried to run. Now understand, I'm a right bastard in me own way. I'm a pirate, a murderer, a thief, and I certainly ain't never believed in a fair fight. But there's a line and an unspoken code between sailing men, and Umbernox went too far. He had mages on his ships. Mages ain't ever been allowed on my boats. They're no good. Bad luck, and I don't trust 'em. Turns out I was right. I cut across the south side of the bay, along the huge cliff wall that used to be there. I had me helmsman stay as close as we could to the cursed cliff. I could hear those mages from the deck of Umbernox's ship yelling some nonsense into the wind. A few rocks fell onto my deck, a few more, then the whole bloody cliff came crashing down on top of me. Now don't you worry, I didn't die just then. The cliff collapsed around the ship, making this damn cavern. The better it just fell on us, but no, it sealed the Black Flag, her crew, and me under tons of rock. We were buggered. Let's get on to the final volume here. I've seen my own blood more times than I could ever count, but seeing the ragged mess that just come up out of me lungs just now is the only time I've ever been afraid of it. I guess I should be getting the last bit of my story. Me and my crew were trapped down here never to see the light again, or some rot. We tried digging out, we tried blasting out, we tried calling the Nines and the Daedric Princes for help. Nothing worked. Some of the men went crazy when we figured out that there was no getting out, but most of us just accepted what fate had dealt us. We made the hulk of the Black Flag the best home that we could and tried making a life of it down here. We had plenty of stores with us, and since most of the crew were killed in the fight, it was more than enough to go around. I tell you though, that you ain't known suffering until you ain't nothing but hard rations for 20-some years. All the pain I ever caused anyone has been paid back to me tenfold in having to eat the same filth every day for the whole time I've been down here. Then Grim died off. Grim was the first, and one by one the boys had been dropping off. They all got the same sickness I ended up with. We buried him, and when we could, threw him in the water when we didn't have the strength to bury him. Finally, we just made him walk to the far side of the cavern a couple days before the sickness ran its course. I'm the last, and I suppose that makes sense. The great Captain Dougal, defeated by fossil Umbernox and buried alive forever. I wonder what became of Anvil. Probably let it burn and swept the ashes into the sea. Umbernox probably went back to the Imperial City to put himself on the back and be rewarded with lands and titles. Like I said way back in the beginning, I don't expect anybody to ever read this, but if by chance someone does, find my carcass down here in this pit. Do an old seaman a favor. Track down whatever descendants that fat old sack Umbernox has and may have, and tell them that Torridon Ap Dougal says hello. Man, it's hard enough to read out loud and have it sound decent anyway, but with that broken English, it's a good thing we laid the captain's bones to rest. Now, there's gonna be at least one more hanging out here. I do believe I see him across the way here. I did not go over there the first time. So I'm gonna go ahead and have to finish him off before we can move on to actually outfitting the Dunbarrow Cove and getting the things that we need. So that will be a really cool thing once it's set up. This is a really good player, I guess, home if you want to call it, but it is definitely a player hub for a single player, yes, but now I believe that's it. That's probably it, yes. It says I've destroyed the last of the undead pirates and claimed Dunbarrow as my own. Now we're gonna go to Delilah Rackham and her ship happens to be on the Anvil docks, and she will sell us everything that we need for the rest of the outfitting at Dunbarrow Cove. And this is a good thing because there are so many cool features here with this actual, it used to be DLC, now it's just actually added in to Oblivion Remastered, which is a really powerful thing. Now, coming outside, I'm just going to cast the Sea Stride spell on myself, and I'm going to go ahead and run around the island here. Now, you guys can approach any way you want. I'm actually looking at the castle. You just run right around this side. You could be on the land if you feel like it. It's not necessary if you know this spell, though. So, I also like this spell for building up my athletics because there's no obstacles in the way and you can just run, run, run. So, that's kind of cool. Now, just approaching the bank here. We're going to go ahead and take a look. Now that is the quest where the quest for the red wave comes in, and you can get the red wave sword over just by talking to the person on deck there. And if you haven't seen my Serpent's Wake video, check that out. That's a pretty decent one. Now we're going to go inside and talk to her. Dunbarrow Cove upgrades. Now we have a security expert and there's a supplier. Each of these are 1,000 septims each. Then there's a fence. We have the fence now. There is a Fletcher as well. And a Spy Master as well. Again, 1,000 septims for each of these. And then the other thing is to upgrade the captain's cabin, which is your cabin now, and that costs 500. So if you've completely upgraded Dunbarrow Cove and hired a full crew once a week, pirates who follow me will actually bring me their share of the booty. Now, you guys actually have to go and approach those pirates and tell them to go out and plunder. So that is one point to keep in mind. Now I'm just going to cast again my spell, and I'm just going to go ahead and run right around this side so you guys can see now what it's like to just run around that side from the Anvil docks. And you can see, well, the spell ran out, but you can see Dunbarrow Cove right here. So this is from the other angle here. Now we're going to go back inside. This is a good area. This store basic items that you just want to drop off real quick and have a safe place to come back to where they don't despawn in the game. I'm not sure if things despawn in the remaster or not, but always better to use a place that's designated. So here we have Tom Blackwell, and I believe this is your security expert, and he sells very basic things like potions and scrolls to open locks, and then he also sells the same kinds of spells like Wraithwind for sneaking and Fortify security, and then also he is a trainer, and all of the trainers in Dunbarrow Cove are expert trainers, so that is pretty amazing. And then here behind him you will find a chest to train your lock picking, and a couple of the vendors inside Dunbarrow Cove. As I was leaving my captain's quarter, I ran into this pirate. I want you to head out and plunder. Now, as I said, he'll go running off, and a couple others will join him, and then they will go out and wreak havoc in Cyrodiil and get you booty and plunder. There they go now. And Tom is still standing over by the fire here. We're going to go over here and talk to this Dunmer. This is Coven Kryn. And he sells some things of noteworthy things, like the gauntlets of the Manhunter, which fortify your marksman and detect life on self for 20 feet. So they give you 2 points of fortified marksman. And then also there are the silence boots that fortify your sneak and security by 2 points, and the gauntlets that do the same. So he sells a few nice items here that are great for stealth characters, and a whole host of the spells for stealth characters. These are all very, very good and in a nice handy spot. And as well, he is a sneak trainer. He can train you to expert level, which is 75, and you can train 5 ranks per level each time you do. So then over here we have Melwyn, and she sells archery stuff, and she has enchanted arrows, you guys. Now right now they're drained, fatigue, and paralyzed, which is actually really good, and I'm gonna go ahead and get those. But you know, other times she'll have an arrow of blizzards and arrow of storms and all kinds of different ones. So she's also an expert marksman's trainer, which is amazing. I mean, what more can you ask for? Is having a sneak trainer and a marksman one within just a few feet of each other, not to mention, you know, the ability to train your lockpick and your security. So that is pretty amazing all in its own. And it's not over yet. We're going to head down here, and this is where the fence will be located. You see the Argonian is just now heading out after the other 2 guys have already gone. But anyhow, we're going to go over here, and this is bacon. You've heard of pork chop? Well, this is bacon. And so, you know, I don't know, man. Which do you like, pork or bacon? And this is Kaviz. This is the fence. And you can sell any stolen item to him, no problem, and he gives you a good price. He's also one of the ones that sell the 100 lockpicks. And so he is handy to have around, especially if you're running a stealth thief character. This Dunbarrow Cove is an absolute essential piece for you to grab now if you are playing Oblivion Remastered, because it's not like you can say, oh, I don't have I guess he's a mercantile trainer. Sorry if I said something else. Sometimes my mouth moves faster than my brain. Anyways, we're going to take one good look at bacon, and back here is another area you can store things if you want. There's really going to be nothing off to the right over here, and that's just underneath the ship like you saw earlier, where sometimes enemies do spawn. Now, you can also go into the Black Flag herself and come down here, just jump down, and then enter into here and meet our last trainer. So I love the pirate vibe. I really do. I love the black flags with the skull and crossbones, just like the old Jolly Roger flag, you know. I really do love that. And the little touches, like the cheap wine on the floor. That is very cool. Now, this is Jack Silver. Jack is also another that sells lockpicks, and he sells a lot of potions like Night Mask and Chameleon and invisibility potions. And then also he is a trainer of speechcraft. So he is very good if you don't want to bother going somewhere else to learn your speechcraft. Some of the ones that I don't want to bother with are the ones I use trainers for, because some are at least a little more entertaining to level and also don't take quite as long. And I'm kind of like, where am I going right now? I apologize for that, but you know, I get turned around. Anyways, it's gonna be nothing in here, and then down in this hatch after you have upgraded it. This will also be a cargo hold where you can hold a lot of different stuff. Now, as it goes, I like having different player areas to store different types of stuff. This will be where I store anything stealth related. And with that, I have been Three Dog. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, hit like. If you'd like to see more content like this, we post Fallout and Oblivion videos almost every day on the channel. Peace, guys. I'll see you next time.